Hello, everyone. My name is Emily.
And I'm Elt.
And I've given up on languages. And I've given up on being an Olympic runner. I've decided instead to be a piano prodigy. No, wait. An accordion prodigy. No, wait. An accordion drummer, triangle player, organist prodigy.
That is such a good idea. And you know what? It's such a good idea that I think I'm going to build a separate bunker special only for you and no one else to practice in.
Ooh, so it'll have really good acoustics. That's important when you're playing music, is acoustics. I don't know what acoustics means, but I looked it up when I was looking up music and I kept on seeing the word acoustics, so I know it's important.
It's a type of playing guitar is acoustics. It's a type of guitar playing.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so you'll also have to become a guitar player also if you want to have acoustics.
Oh my goodness, I could be like Bert from Mary Poppins and I'll just have a ton of different instruments and every time I step it'll make a sound, or if I move my hand. Okay.
That's such a good idea, but only in the basement. You can't bring it out until you're ready to go on to America's Got Talent or something. It can't come into this basement. It has to stay in the other bunker the whole time.
Well, yeah, obviously I don't want you to steal my act. Duh.
You're right. Yeah, duh, obviously.
Anyway, I guess I was a little bit on a music kick because of the books that we're going to talk about today, which are This Savage Song and Our Dark Duet by Victoria Schwab, which is a...
And let's say we're specifically talking about the original covers and not the new covers that they've made. Just saying, you might like the new covers, but I like the old covers. That's all.
Are you going to explain what you mean?
Well, because now that they came out in paperback and now they just redone the covers. So I'm
good.
I'm an originalist.
Gotcha. You are.
Yeah. Anyways, as you were saying.
So yes, we're going to talk about this Duology. Duology?
Duology.
Duology.
I call it duology, but you don't have to follow my lead.
Yeah. Well, a soft G is just ridiculous. It's obviously supposed to be a hard G. I studied English, so I know what I'm talking about. Don't worry, people. Anyway, so the ratings, which again we will get into more later, but the violence we gave it a 3, which is 3. Language we gave it a 4, and romance just 1. Which, given how the relationship is set up, being that the two main characters, one is a female and one is a male, the fact that the romance is this low is actually pretty exciting.
Yeah, and it's hardly in the first book even. It's just that there's one scene in the second book that knocked the romance rating up, but it's barely there in the first book. I don't think there's anything there in the first book.
Yeah, which is nice. They just, not that, boys and girls, it does tend to happen that if they're going to be friends at a certain age, they're going to be romantic feelings. But also, in a book which is fiction, an author or authoress can choose for a character to do whatever she wants. So she can choose that even though in real life, boys and girls at a certain age have lots of hormones flying around, might have a hard time keeping their hands off each other in fantasy, especially this, because there's so much other fantasy stuff going on anyway, they can do whatever they want. Or not do whatever they want, as the case may be. Anyway.
Yeah, I think this is urban fantasy, I think officially. Something like that.
Urban fantasy. Yes. So, brief synopsis. Kate Harker and August Flynn, these are our two main characters, are the heirs to a divided city, a city where the violence has begun to breed actual monsters. All Kate wants is to be as ruthless as her father, who lets the monsters roam free and makes the humans pay for his protection. But August wants to be a human and a good person to play a big role in protecting the innocent, but he's one of the monsters. Is your mind blown yet? So he's the type of monster who can steal a soul with a simple strain of music, which is why there's the savage song in Our Dark Duet. It's a musical theme. When the chance arises to keep an eye on Kate, who's just been kicked out of her 6th boarding school and returned home, August jumps at it. But Kate discovers August's secret, and after a failed assassination attempt, the pair must flee for their lives. Would you like to go? Etc. Yes, that's basically what happens. Would you like to go into it more detail, Elton?
Yeah, so here's something that's interesting. I actually saw interviews and also just people that I recommend the book to. A lot of people don't get this book. Like, there's people who they love the series, and there are people who are just like, I don't. It's just not doing anything for me, which is fine. But
Yeah, people
I
are
actually, yeah, yeah, and I did. I very much enjoyed the series, and I very much. I've read one or two other Victoria Schwab books, or V.E. Schwab when she writes for adults. These two are, I think they're just always going to be a favorite. The other ones, I didn't like them as much. There's something different about this duology. And I don't even know if it's something that could be explained or if it just hits you in the right way at the right moment kind of thing. But I'm always just going to be a big fan of these books. And I do especially like the fact that the language, you got some, I think, S words and F bombs a little bit. That I never appreciate that. And it's always like, come on, why did you have to do that? The romance is one just because there's one part where Kate and August, it's in the second book, they kind of have this like makeout scene, and it seems like they might be doing more, but they don't. And I'm glad it stopped. It almost didn't even need to be there at all. We didn't even need to see that part. Like, they were doing fine as not going there. And there's no like, oh, he was looking at her, looking at him, sort of. You don't feel like, oh, there's a crush that has to happen. It was just almost like there's the boy and the girl, and they got really close to each other, so they ended up making out. So, and then violence is 3, just because there is a lot of killing that's going on, and you have the way the monsters are killing people, and the way the people are killing monsters, whatever. Anyways, just to explain this a little bit more, so the city of Verity, because the monsters of Verity, is split in half. And Kate's father is kind of like the mafia boss, who's like, okay, I'm gonna let the monsters. Every time someone does an evil act, it creates a monster. So each time someone murders someone, a monster is created. Or each time someone just does something, these like really heinous sins cause monsters to be created. So in Kate's father's part of the city, he only tries to control the monsters under himself, but if anybody else wants to be protected from a monster, you don't want the monster to feed off of you, because there's different kinds of monsters and they feed off of people differently. If you don't want them to feed off of you, you got to pay me for protection, and then I'll keep you safe. Versus for August and like the Flynn family, they're controlling their side of the city, and they're actually actively hunting down monsters to keep people safe by like getting rid of this. And then sometimes when you have people are trying to flee from Kate's father's side of the city, they're trying to come to the Flynn side for safety. So they kind of have to vet the people coming in to make sure, like, oh, are you pure to be coming in? Or sometimes they sense that someone's created this like great sin or something. So when he plays his violin, it brings these people's souls, like their souls come out from them, and he can see if one of them has been tainted or not. He can like reap the soul there and then the person dies, or he could just not go there and let the person go. So he also has an older brother monster officially, and then the second book has a younger brother monster. Like, they're not actually siblings because monsters are not created from parents. They're created from really, again, like evil acts. And the kind of monster that August is someone who is created from something like an absolute tragedy. Like, I think he was created from like a school shooting or something like that. Something that is so over the top, tragic evil. That's what creates the kind of monsters that he is, and that his quote unquote brothers are. So the younger brother is always referred to as a they. He's like, oh, couldn't figure out what it was. So I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be sort of like a non-binary thing or not, because this book came out before that. Like, not necessarily before that. Before that was like a very popular issue that everyone was speaking about. So I don't know if she was aiming for that or just because it's a monster, so it could go either way. I didn't think it was like a little bit weirdish, but it wasn't that big of a deal. Again, because I wasn't like, when the book came out, it wasn't like so automatic to just know. But the bigger thing is that the first book is fantastic. The second book is not as good, but it's still pretty good. It also starts off with Kate running away from the city, so she ends up in this other city to spend some time with Kate in this other city. It's almost like, come on, go back to Verity. Like, what are you doing in this other place right now? Because the book goes back and forth between Kate and August. And it's all about how August is like, oh, I'm a monster, but I want to be more human, right? And Kate's trying to fight off this monsterness of her, because also at a certain point she has to kill somebody. But she does kill in self-defense, but it still creates a monster. That monster then tries to like hunt her down. And then that way also, like, if August would like play his violin around her, he would see the red of her soul. Like, he would see that the soul is tainted. So there are some like crazy twists, the way the story gets tangled with each other, crazy stuff going on. It is an interesting, let's say, dichotomy or version of evil to say, Kate did kill somebody in self-defense. It's not exactly murder, but can you but now her soul is forever tainted by that. Is this something that someone can actually come back from? According to the story, there's no way to like re-whiten your soul. Doesn't mean someone has to die, but just that's what it means. So there's just a lot of stuff going on that if you could look past the fact that like monsters, I want to believe in these monsters and these dark shapes flitting around and they're so weird. You have to look past that to see what the actual story is like actually discussing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it's exactly a message. Maybe it is, but it does delve into very interesting ideas and portrayals of like what is evil and can someone fight their natural inclinations. Like if August is a monster, can he also be human? Like can he be a human monster? Can he have compassion even though he has to go and he's reaping souls of like those who are stained and those or whatever? Can he have compassion as he does it? So there are really interesting things here. So that's why again, like people who didn't like it, I don't know if they just didn't like the whole monster thing, or maybe they didn't get it, or they just didn't like it. So
I really liked it, but I didn't read the whole thing twice, but I think I had to read, let's say like 4 or 5 chapters in, and I didn't get what was happening because she reveals things as the book goes on, which is a normal way of writing, but because so much of it is also fantasy, there were things that were happening that a sentence in the first chapter didn't make sense until I'd read something in the 6th chapter that explained it. So I think I had to read the first few chapters over, and once I read it and I understood what was going on, I really liked it, but it did take me a while to understand where I was and what was happening.
Right. And okay, that makes sense. These are also, I think they're her 3rd and 4th book maybe, but these are books that really put her on the map. And just as a side thing for anybody who's a writer out there, I read her first book. The first book, not her first. Oh, no. I think these are more her 5th and 6th book. Whatever it is. She's got like a whole bunch of books signed now. Like, she's coming out with new books and she has a whole bunch signed now. She's become a very big deal now. And I think this duology had a lot to do with it. But I went back and read one of her first books. I think it's archived. It's also a duology. I couldn't get... The first book was just not that good. And it's like, you were able to see how much she's grown as a writer to have been able to hit on something like this, versus her first book was just so regular. Like, it wasn't as unique. Even though I can't say, oh, I've seen this story before, it didn't... There's something, I don't know, there's something about this duology that I understand why it could have become so big. Sometimes when books become big, I'm just like I don't get it, or I don't see what's so different from this versus other things. But I do think, I don't know what it has. It has something. There is something that I guess if you do get it, you can really appreciate and see that there's something different about it. It makes sense that it would have become so big. That's what I think, at least.
Yeah. I, for once, don't have anything to say to disagree.
Wow.
With you. I know. It's sort of a weird feeling. I feel like there are little penguins flapping around in my stomach.
It's that or that cheese that I told you not to eat. Yeah.
Wait, was it the one in the drawer in the fridge you said not to eat?
The one that you're like, oh, wow, how come it has such pretty colors on it? I was like, no, that's not colors, that's mold. Yeah.
Oh. Okay, so maybe that's what I'm feeling. Ooh. Oh, maybe that's why I can't come up with anything I'm just going to have to agree with you and say whatever you said about the book is, yep, that's what I think too.
Well, we could say there is one more thing to just say, and that is something to think about, which you made a note on this, and then you didn't even say it, so I'm going to say it for you. Yes. Like, how would we behave if actual monsters came up when we did something bad? Like, if every time you did something that was, we say evil, but like if you told a lie, if you did this or that, and actually a monster was created from it, like what kind of world would that be like, and how that would affect
really
us?
See the repercussions of the actions that you took. Would you act differently?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are pros to be clutching and reading this, but we're kind of not as randy about it because it also gives you so much to think about. And again, we always get swayed a little bit when something actually has real substance to it.
Yes. And you're right, it just has a certain something that makes it better. There are a lot of YA novels that are urban fantasy or some sort of dystopian weird future, but some are just better. And sometimes you can put a finger on it and you can say it's a creative concept, or it makes you ponder deep concepts, and this has both, but also sometimes there's just, like, some songs are just great and some songs are mediocre, and the two songs can sound similar, but sometimes something just has it, and whatever it is, and these books have it.
Yeah,
Right?
definitely the first one more than the second one, but they do. There's just something about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But please just write it without the bad language, and it would have been so much. There would be much less pearls being clutched. That's all. Just do it without the bad language.
Where
Thanks.
would we be if we didn't have pearls to clutch?
There are always pearls to clutch.
There will always be pearls to clutch. And with that pearl of wisdom, see what I did there? I'm going to head outside for some fresh air because now it's like penguins are doing the salsa in my stomach.
Oh, that's nice.
No, it's not. And I like dancing,
Oh.
but this is, whew. So, excuse me, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll see you next time.
Catch you next time. Cheers, peoples. Oh My Word podcast is brought to you by the Pearl Clutching Basement Dwellers at Oh My Word. Follow us on Instagram for updates at Oh My Word Podcast, or like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For full episode notes and details, visit eltenenbaum.com. Music is by Tim Burke. Sound is by Gabriel Yaffe. See you next time.